Good morning, everybody. Welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, the first live daily photo show on YouTube every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. You should be here live because that's how you get to participate in all the fun stuff like we're going to do right now. Hey, quick reminder, if you are watching live, you want to get my attention, make sure you put it at PhotoJoseph in front of your chat so I can see it and I can respond appropriately. Today's show, God, I did that microphone thing again where I forgot that I'm wearing a floppy shirt. Sorry, sorry, bad form. I should have fixed this earlier. So, look, I'm tan. Today's show is not about photography exactly. It's about a common photography scam. And I know this scam shows up all over the place. I've been doing some research on this one. Basically any industry. I saw reports of people who run gyms getting hit by this scam. It doesn't matter what. If you are in the service industry, you are at risk of getting hit with this scam. And fortunately, I've known about this scam for a long time. Also, fortunately, I'm a little bit clever, just a little. I figured it out immediately. I mean, like immediately. But I'm going to take you through the whole story. Now, I know some of you who are watching live yesterday's pre-show, you got the behind-the-scenes story. I'm going to start from the beginning because this is the official show. I don't want everybody to hear this story here. And so we will talk about camera gear and stuff at the end. But right now, we're just going to tell the story. So here's the scam. This is a very, very common scam. You get approached by somebody. It's always over text message or email. It's not voice communication. They might tell you that they're talking to you this way because they lost their voice, they're hard of hearing, whatever. There's a reason they don't want to talk to you on the phone. But that's kind of irrelevant. It's, email conversation. We all do email anyway, so that's kind of what we're used to. In this case, mine came via chat. And I knew something was fishy right away because it came via chat via my Google Voice number. My Google Voice number is the local area code number that I use as the one that I list as the business number. It's not a number that people would usually try and text me on. If people are going to text me, they got my cell phone number. But anyway, so I get a message on there, and it starts, oh, you know what? Here, hold on. Slight disclaimer. Here, we're going to put this up here. Do not try this at home. Seriously, what I'm about to tell you that I did was probably dumb, and this might still come back to bite me in the ass, but it's worth it for the entertainment value alone. Okay, so that out of the way. Let me bring this up here. Where's my chat? So we're gonna start. I'm gonna show you the conversation, which is actually the fact that I'm very pleased at, because I think that this scammer deleted the conversation. It completely disappeared from my phone, but I sat down this morning where I had my chat up yesterday, and it's still there. So I've done a bunch of screenshots, but I'm terrified to close this window lest it will be gone forever and ever. But anyway, so this is how it started. He texts me and says, "Hi, I'm John. I'm having a reunion party on the 11th of August. Let me know if you're available." I say, "Hi, happy to help. I'm in town that day. What can you tell me about the event, time, location, etc.? My rates are listed here." He says, "It's a family reunion party, about 5 hours event. Here's the time. Here's my budget." Okay, so this is how this usually starts. I want to hire you for an event. It could be a wedding, could be a party, could be, whatever. It's an event. That's typically the way this works. And they want to pay you. They want to know if you take credit card. Yes, I do. Okay, we'll pay you by credit card. And then they'll say, "Here's what I need you to do me a favor. I'm going to pay you more than what your fee is. Let's say that your fee is $1,000. I'm going to pay you $2,000. And I would like you to pay the florist, the caterer, the event manager, whatever. It's some other number of things that they would like you to pay." That's the basic idea. So essentially, they pay you via credit card, which is probably stolen. You get the money. You go, the credit card transaction cleared. I've got the money. They then say, "Can you please pay out the florist," and so on. So you pay that. They're very insistent that it be paid by some method that is non-refundable and non-traceable. Maybe a bank wire transfer. Maybe this guy was always saying a cash deposit. He actually wanted me to go get cash out of my bank and deposit into his bank, which was Wells Fargo. Go figure. We'll get to that part of it. But the point is, they want you to transfer money over. And then something happens to the credit card payment. It gets canceled, reversed, the card is determined stolen, the bank reverses it. Somehow or another, that money gets sucked back out of your account, and you're left with a problem, right? You have sent money that you cannot retrieve, and at this point, obviously, they're gone. That's the basic scam. Okay. So he's asking me to do this. He says, I want to give you $2,500. My sister is in the hospital. He tells me that he's a realtor. He tells me he's got this event coming up. I ask him where. He says the Rogue Valley Country Club. That's local. So, okay, this is, a local location. He says he's got a sister in the hospital. I already know this is BS, right? I mean, I know, but I'm in the back of the car on a road trip. I'm not driving, and I'm going, I'm going to have some fun with this. So I start responding to him. So he tells me, where the event is. He says his sister's in the hospital. I go, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. What hospital? I have friends in all the local hospitals, which is true. And I could find out what's going on. I could look into this for you. And he gives me the name of a hospital, but it's Gold Beach, which is not nearby. It's not super far, but it's not a local hospital. Oh, okay. And then he says, he's going to pay me this money. He needs me to pay the hospital on behalf of him. And I don't think he ever made it really clear why he couldn't do it, but he needed me to do it. No, I'm not pressing for too much information here. So at one point he tells me I need to pay his sister, and I said, I will take the cash money and hand it to your sister in person. This is what I tell him. And then he says he needs me to pay the administrator. Then he tells me he needs me to pay the administrator by PayPal. And that I asked him, I go, well, why PayPal? Why can't you, if you got a credit card, why can't you pay the hospital by credit card? Oh, they use PayPal. Of course they do. And my credit card, because it has a really high limit and it's had some fraudulent activity, it won't work on PayPal. Which is actually, I think, kind of true. If you have a suspect credit card, PayPal won't work. So, he's got like that part of it. I go, oh, okay. I'll help you out. And then it becomes once he's got the money, he wants me to put it into a Wells Fargo account. Okay, I'm getting ahead of things. So I say, okay, I'm happy to help. He says, do you take credit card? Yeah, I established that. He asked me, do you use, and he named off a couple of credit card processors. And I said, no, I do all my invoicing through QuickBooks Online. That's my credit card processor. Give me your email address, I'll send you an invoice. So he sends me his email address. So I send him an invoice for $2,500. Cool. Minutes later, he's paid the invoice. I get a pop-up, he's paid you. All righty, we're getting somewhere. And I had already said to him, once you pay it, I will have to wait for the funds to clear my account before transferring any funds. I'm sure you understand that. He says, yes, I understand. The instant I get the payment, he says, so can you pay the hospital now? I go, no, I already told you that I have to wait. And he goes, okay. And he says something else about his sister. I go, I'm sure your sister will be just fine. Anyway, so that was Friday, holiday weekend, right? Monday, which is not a bank holiday. Monday, he's texting me right away, early first thing in the morning. Did you get money to get to the money? I had gotten the money. By that point, the money had actually already transferred into my bank account. But I said, no, it's not here yet. Tuesday, he messages again. I say, it's a holiday here. Wednesday, he messages me again, and now I ignore him. And I'm waiting now till I get home. And at some point in the middle of the day, I text him again. I message back to him and I say, I'm on the road today. I'll look into it as soon as I can. So finally yesterday, Thursday, is when it gets really interesting. So Thursday morning, the money's been in my account since Monday now. And he's saying to me, hey, what's going on? I need you to transfer the money. And I never say to him, the money is in my account. Never use those words. He says, is the money there? Is the money there? I said, and this was part of what was happening live on the show yesterday, and I wanted to call him. He started calling me like a dozen times. He's calling. Ryan actually answered it at one point, but it was a bad connection, got cut off. And then we just ignored his calls. But I respond to him and I say, where am I transferring to? What's the account number? Something like that. And he gives me a Wells Fargo account number. And I'm going, oh, that's interesting. Because I think at that point, there's got to be breaking federal laws at this point if there's money going through that. I mean, what do I know? But it sounds bad. So I go, okay, I'll transfer the money. And he keeps saying, put cash in the account. So at some point I ask him, what do you mean? I'm confused. What do you mean? Do you mean you need me to go to my bank and take cash out and walk to your bank and deposit the cash there? He goes, yeah, that's what you have to do. Okay, no problem. I'll do that. Okay, so now, obviously, there's all kinds of fun stuff going on. So I'm doing some research on this the day before. I've done some research, and one of the things that it said you can do is call the FTC, Federal Trade Commission. I don't know why the FTC, but that's what it said you can do. So I called the FTC, called them, and I get someone on the phone, and I explain the situation. They go, we don't handle individual cases. We only handle large, like corporate business, big stuff, unless a lot of people have complained about the same thing, and then we can do it. I'm like, that's helpful. Obviously the email address, if I give you the email address, it'll be changed in a week, whatever. So basically they say, we can't help you, call the police. I'm thinking, what are the local police going to do? But okay, I don't call them yet. Then I call my credit card processing company and explain the situation to them. And they're very interested in this. And they say their recommendation, their advice, is to go onto my QuickBooks merchant services account, whatever it's called, and reverse the payment, which I can do. I can go in and click reverse and it reverses the payment. She says the problem is, so I've already paid a $40 fee. I mean, it came out of that $2,500, but they've taken out a $40 fee for this. They say if you reverse it, you'll have to pay another fee. And I'm thinking, well, that sucks because then I'm going to be out $80, and I don't want to be out $80. She goes, but that's what we're recommending you do. And I said, well, what if I don't do anything? She goes, oh, well, as far as our records show, this is the QuickBooks, just saying, as far as our records show, it's not a stolen card. Now, I think that could change, and that we'll come to that, but I think that that's kind of still the ongoing part of this. She says, but the funds have cleared. Everything is done as far as they're concerned. So the only option other than, I guess, it being a stolen card and that coming up later, but she's saying it's showing legit. The only option is if the payee, the scammer, tries to reverse the payment and they claim that it's a fraudulent payment or something like that. And she goes, at that point, we will email you and open a case and then decide whether we're refunding the money or not. And so she writes down all of this information on there. I get a case number. This is all on record with the credit card processor. Because I said, well, I didn't use their credit card number, right? They never gave me their number. I sent them an invoice. And on the invoice, it says, $2,500 due for these services, and they paid it. They entered their credit card number online and paid it. So it is completely legit as far as they're concerned. Okay, cool. So then I go to Wells Fargo. I walk into my local Wells Fargo branch and I say, hey, I'd like to talk to a manager. Here's the situation. The bank teller goes off, talks to the manager, comes back, she doesn't want to talk to you. This is nothing they can do. Don't you want to know if a scammer is using a Wells Fargo account? Maybe you should look into it. She goes, yeah, I would think we would, but we don't. Okay, bravo, Wells Fargo local, first of all. Bad form. She says, call the police. I go, well, it's the second person who told me to call the police. So I call the police, call my local police. So they set up a callback, cop calls me back. I explain the situation. He goes, well, there's two things. He goes, number one, it's not a local situation. So there's not really anything I can do. I mean, I'm local, but nothing's happening locally other than me being on the phone. And he goes, the second thing is that a crime has not actually been committed yet. Good point, right? Cops can't do anything until a crime is actually committed. All right. So I'm thinking at this point, should I deposit $1 into his account? And at that point, will a crime have been committed? And I thought about that, but at some point you go, I'm bored with this. So I didn't do that. So then I go home or whatever, going about my day, and he's messaging me again. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And I figure, all right, I'm done with this now. So I message him back, and let me pull up this part of the conversation, which I think is fabulous. Okay, here we go. Oop, let me get to the beginning of this. Here we go. Okay, so he goes, I asked him, do you want me to get cash? He says, yes. You will get a cash. Let me make this a little bigger here. You will get a cash from your bank and make a cash deposit to the Wells Fargo bank. Once you make the cash deposit, snap and send me the receipt. Thanks. Hello, can I have the receipt now? You can see the time difference there, 11:20, and then it's 2 hours later, 1:25. I say, I went to Wells Fargo and they said I should call the police, which is totally true, right? 100% true. That's what they told me. I didn't, elaborate that I had told him I thought he was a scammer. For what? I say, you tell me. He says, I don't understand you. What's going on? I said, that's what I'm wondering. He says, what are you trying to do? I said, what are you trying to do? He says, you're acting weird. Tell me in details what's happening. And I said, I just did. They said I should call the police. I'm waiting for them to call back, which wasn't true. I'd already talked to the police. What agency do you work for? Now that I asked because he had earlier said that he was a realtor in town and was out of town for business and blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, let's see if he remembers that. Doesn't matter. Didn't come back up. But I asked. I figured, why not? So what agency are you working for? He says, are you trying to play pranks on me? What's happening to my money? So now I come out. I say, what are you trying to do? Clearly you're a scammer. This is a pretty old trick. You really think I'm going to take cash out of my bank and put it in yours where it's impossible for me to reverse the payment? I'm waiting for my credit card processing company to decide that the card you used was stolen and reverse the payment. And he says, what do you mean by that? It couldn't possibly be any clearer, but there you go. And then I say, I have already talked to the bank, the police, and the FTC. I'm sure you're not in my country, so there's no way to have you arrested, but I'll do what I can to stop you from hurting people. And then he says, this is the best. You're dealing with the wrong guy, dude. You want me to mess with your pretty family and friends, right? I got a physical threat. Oh, this is fun. Okay, so now he's threatened me. Now you're threatening me. That's great. More to show the police. If the credit card is yours, you can call the company and ask them to reverse the transaction. If it's stolen, then the bank will take care of it for you eventually. However, we are done. Thanks, it's been fun. I haven't had this much fun with a scammer for a while. He says, you just made a mistake. Joseph, I asked you if you can help me with this, and you said, yeah, and I can trust you. Now my sister's in pain, waiting for the money. You're here talking shit to me. What the hell is wrong with you photographers? I even gave you the hospital address and name. Is that not enough? What sort of nonsense is this? At that point, that's the end of that conversation. He tries to call me a couple more times, and then he deletes the conversation. And I didn't know you could do that, but the conversation's gone off my phone. I'm obviously not going to refresh this. All right, we are finishing the show on this microphone because my wireless just lost power. Excellent. because batteries died. Always check your batteries before you start a show, boys and girls. Very, very good idea. All right, let's make sure levels are good. Levels are good out there, Ryan? Sounding good? Okay, so he deletes the conversation, which I didn't know you could do, but apparently you can. Go figure. So there's that. Now I'm just waiting. So at this point, I'm wondering, what is the end game for him? If it's a stolen credit card, it has to be a stolen credit card, right? I don't know why the bank hasn't picked up on that yet. Somehow maybe it's not reported as stolen yet, but at some point that has to come up as a stolen credit card. That's the only logical explanation that I have. Because if it's and I thought about, what if it's actually a legitimate credit card? If it's a legitimate credit card and this is just a cost of doing business for the scammers, occasionally they lose, they just cut all ties and move on to the next victim, but usually they don't. Usually they win. At that point, might he go in and try to reverse the transaction? Or does he just walk away from it? But I still think it's a stolen credit card. Obviously, I'm not going to spend the money. I've moved it to another account. It's just going to sit there for a very long time. But that's the only kind of open question that I have here is, what is the end game on this? Also, one thing I would have done differently obviously I didn't know how this was going to play out. But in retrospect, so I sent an invoice. Remember I mentioned earlier, I made a point of saying I sent him an invoice, which he clicked online to pay. The invoice, I think it was listed as a deposit for this event or something like that. The only thing I would want to change there is I would write on that invoice, non-refundable deposit, right? Because let's say that he decides to play a legit game on this, calls the credit card company, he's got a real credit card, says, hey, I canceled the event, this photographer won't refund my money, please get my money back. They call me and say, hey, he wants a refund, he canceled the event. I would like to be able to point to an invoice that says, well, my invoice says non-refundable deposit, he paid the money, end of discussion, but it doesn't. So if they do that, I would have to say, well, my policy is refund up to 50%, or who knows, play that if it comes to that. But that's where it's at right now. So the only real question is, what is the end game for him? Because even if he had, think of this through, if I had deposited the money, he wasn't asking for the full $2,500, right? He was asking for, I don't know, $2,000 or something, whatever it was. If I had done that, he'd still be negative, so he'd have to get that credit card money back, unless, of course, it's a stolen credit card. So that's the kind of only open question, and I will update. So if you're watching this not live, and you see a thing pop up right here, right now, that means that there's an update to this story, and I will obviously update you on it. So let's see. Let's go into the comments and see what's going on. That's the story. That's what I want to tell you guys. So let's see what's going on in the comments here. Where'd it go? Come here. Comment split there. That's the one. Alrighty. Kevin's, oh no, we're talking lenses there. We'll actually talk cameras later. Burns Tech, love these scams. Yeah, I've had my fair share of those. I love messing with them and wasting their time. It's so much fun. Is this video going to be used as evidence? I got to go. I got warrants. You should have taken the money and given him $2,500 worth of access codes to the GH5 course. That's great. Oh, I'll refund you. Absolutely. Burns Tech, well, it looks like we'll never bank with Wells Fargo. I don't know. I don't want to slam on them too hard, but I didn't think that was a very good way for them to handle it. But I did leave out one thing. So I called Wells Fargo corporate. I just went on their website, looked up the general number, and there someone said, "Okay, we would like to know about this. Please send an email to report fish or report something." Here, let me tell you. Let me look it up, because I think if you want to know these things, you probably should. If you run into this situation, you're with Wells Fargo. You can, waiting for my notes to update, there we go. You can email reportfish, that's PHISH, reportfish@wellsfargo.com. And they said that they may actually follow up with me to tell me the results of it. I emailed them yesterday. I haven't heard back anything at all, but there you go. Let's see here. Burns Tech. Okay. Oh, and then the audio went out. Someone says, Bart says he hacked your audio and cut it off. He's everywhere. Yeah, exactly. Bought batteries from the scammer. I might have. No, they're just my rechargeables. Everybody says they thought the scammer was getting back at me. Okay, that'd be a little bit creepy. Fortunately, this is not through Google Hangouts. Isn't it funny? I mean, you're going to scam somebody, maybe do a little bit of research, but I guess that's just a waste of time. It's got to be a throw at the wall and see what sticks. What do you suppose the numbers are of people who just ignore them, after the first or second message, stop communicating with them? I mean, I got a second one of these yesterday, and it was, again, same through Google Hangout, a Google Chat, asking, was it not a party, some other event, asking if I, for available for an event. Are you available for my anniversary party? I think it was. I think that was the entire conversation. Are you available for my anniversary party? I said, that's a little vague. When and where? They respond with a budget, and I just wrote back. I said, that's under my budget. That's I won't do it for that. And that was the last I heard from him. So anyway. Robin Williams says, if it's stolen, it's likely the rightful owner of the card won't know it's stolen until their monthly statement arrives. Okay, fair enough. But credit card companies are generally really good at detecting fraudulent activity. So, a $2,500 online purchase, which is not small, you would think that the card company would go, hold on, that's out of the normal behavior for this buyer, unless it isn't. But you're right. Maybe it won't show up until that monthly statement comes in. So believe me, I'll be sitting on this money for a long time. Burnstick says, I've gotten into that habit of asking the cardholder to provide the card issuing bank's phone number. Yeah, see, I never talked to him, right? As far as that goes, he just paid it online. So let's see how much, I've got it right here. I don't think there's much I can see in there. No. See, I've got the last 4 digits of his credit card, and there's a Visa, but that's all the information that I've got in there. Stuart says, on the 4th of July, I received a call stating my Microsoft license key had expired and you need to call ASAP. Only one problem, I'm a Mac user, just another scam. Yeah, that's really common as well. It's amazing how many scams are out there and how many people fall for them. That's really the unfortunate part. Jason McCurry Film says, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning. Is the family photo to be taken in Bend and the guy was originally in ICU? That was a recent one for me that hit. No. His sister is supposedly in a hospital in Gold Beach, but he's got a credit card but has to pay the hospital in a cash wire transfer. Totally legit. It's just the whole thing. The event that he wanted me to shoot was a family reunion, which is funny. I should actually call the Rogue Valley. God, how embarrassing would that be if I call the country code? They're like, yeah, we have an event listed. Call the hospital. Yeah, we have someone here under that name. Maybe I should. Obviously, I'm not going to send him any money anyway. Yeah, sounds legit. Yeah, you got to pay him cash only. And it's so funny how many times he insisted it has to be cash. Really? Maybe it's a prepaid card or a service like Simple Card or Moving Card. Yeah, but innocent, then that would mean that he's out of the money for real. And he was never asking me for more money unless it was a long tail scam and he was hoping that I'd, give him this money and then give him more later and end up scamming me for more than the $2,500 that he gave me. I suppose that's a possible outcome of it as well. Interesting. It's interesting. Obviously I'm not a scammer, so I don't know all the tricks of the trade. I just know that this was not legit. Yeah, interesting. And I'm glad that I've got everything documented, and I'm super glad that even though he deleted, I was bummed when he deleted the conversation because I thought, oh crap, I haven't done screenshots. I've documented some parts of it. I've screenshotted paragraphs, but I hadn't screenshot the entire conversation. So I was really happy to see that it was still on my computer here. So I do have screenshots of the entire thing, which is great. So there you go. I think that was fun. All right, should we talk about photography a bit? I didn't even set up a card to do a new show, so we're just on like a conversations thing. We'll just jump into that. So if you're here just for the scamming thing, well, who knows? Something else might come up about that. But we're going to change gears, talk about anything photography you guys want to talk about. And if you don't want to talk about photography, then I'm going to get out of here and we'll call it a show. So there was something about lens in the beginning. Let me go back to that. Someone got a new lens, I think they said. Beardy Face says you got your 25 f1.7 this week. Awesome. 25-1.7 is a lovely lens. Kevin writes asking how it compares to the Pancake. To the 20 millimeter Pancake, which I don't think I have, but the 25 millimeter f1.7 is a Leica lens. I'll be very interested to hear what you think of it. My copy, I believe it's a little bit soft around the edges, but at certain apertures, I haven't done any hardcore tests, but that was kind of my impression of it. I don't use it much. Mainly these days I don't use it because I've got this Zhongyi 25 millimeter f.95 lens. But I have heard from other people that lens is super, super sharp. So I think mine might be a bad copy, but who knows? Things out where maybe I dropped it at some point. Yeah, I never know. Okay. Anything else in the comments about photography? No, nothing else. All right, last chance, folks. If you got a question or you got something you want to talk about, throw it up there. I'm going to do. There were some comments that came up yesterday in the comments of yesterday's video that I did actually want to address. See if I can pull these up really quick. Extender01 says, friend of mine is a hobby dog photographer. Cool. She was asked a few times if she could do paid shooting. She would like to, but is struggling with price setup. Ooh, some advice. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Pricing. Pricing is always one of the hardest things as a photographer. You can read advice telling you to do like a million different things. No photographer wants to tell you you should charge $200 or you should charge $1,000. No one will ever tell you that because it completely depends on your market, your experience, obviously the service you're providing. It's too many different factors. So it really comes down to trying to figure out what the market will bear. Obviously, you want to charge as much as you possibly can to what the market will bear, right? If the client is willing to pay $1,000, then you should charge $1,000. If they're only willing to pay $50 and you're willing to only make $50, then charge $50. The beauty of doing this as a hobbyist / amateur who wants to make a little money on the side is that you can charge less than a professional photographer would. But as a professional photographer, I have to say that kind of sucks for us. But that just means that us as pros have to provide additional services. We have to make it worth hiring us, right? So I charge a premium for portraits. I don't do cheap portraits anymore. If people call me for a portrait, I'll go, great, this is my rate. And they quite often go, oh, that's kind of a lot. And I said, well, this is what I offer for that. This is what's included. Well, can you just do a headshot? I mean, honestly, I do still have a price on my website. And if someone calls and they're nice, I might do it. But I generally don't because it's a race to the bottom. There are too many people around here who do headshots and, a headshot, white background, 1 or 2 lights, it's not rocket science. I just don't want to mess around with it anymore. So I offer a much more inclusive package. I call it an experiential package. So if you hire me to do a portrait, you're not going to come into my studio and I'm going to take your picture. We're going to spend half a day to a full day together. We're going to go to multiple locations. You can bring in as many friends and family as you want to this. I'm not piecemealing it. Some people say, oh, you get 3 wardrobe changes and 2 hours, and I don't do any of that. I just go, it's a half day or full day, and this is the fee, and that's it. Because I don't want to compete with photographers who are only charging $200 for a headshot, which is ludicrous, right? So I don't want to fight with that. So to your friend's question of how do they decide what to charge, obviously you can look around and see if there's anybody in the area doing what you already do or what your friend already does, right? If there's somebody else offering dog photography like that, then your friend can look at their work and go, whoa, they're way better than I am, or my stuff's just as good as that. Get their prices, and then either charge more, charge less, charge the same. That's a pretty legit way to do it, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Price fixing is illegal, right? We can't call up other photographers and say, hey, what are you charging for a portrait? $500? Okay, I won't go under that. That's illegal. You can't do that. But you want to be competitive, but you also got to make a living. So, pricing is a hard one. What you'll see a lot is people advise how to calculate a price is to look at how much money you want to make. Let's say, you want to make $50,000 a year, and how much money you have to make per hour to do that. But of course, you're not shooting every hour. So then you have to decide, well, let's just say that you determine that you need to make $15 an hour. The math is completely wrong, I'm sure. Let's make it easy, $10 an hour. You decide that you need to make $10 an hour to make the amount of money that you want to make per year. But the problem is that you aren't getting paid unless you're actually on a shoot. So if you're going to do 1 shoot a day, and the $10 an hour is obviously, it's deliberately a low BS number. If a 1 day is an 8-hour day and you need to make $80 in that day and you can schedule 1 shoot a day, you only have to charge $80 and you're making a living. Obviously, that's not the way it usually works. Usually you're scheduling, maybe 1 or 2 a week, or maybe less, or maybe more. It just depends on what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera. But you need to figure out, okay, if I'm only going to get paid for this 1 shoot and I'm shooting just 1 a week, then that means I have to make my entire week's salary in that 1 shoot. So that's one very legitimate way to look at it. And then from there, you can just start changing your prices as needed. All right, Bart says, did anything ever happen with your inquiring about the Metabone speed boosters? Nope, they never responded more than to tell me they're not ready. So they clearly don't want me to play with it. I'll just get it from B&H eventually. Jason McCurry Film says, I know this is off topic of Panasonic. Panasonic is not the topic. Photography is. But did you ever hear about the rumored red phone? I heard about it yesterday. Someone on the show mentioned it. I looked at it. It's not rumored. I mean, they announced it. It looks interesting. I'm not about to go out and spend $1,300 on a holographic phone. I'll let somebody else do that. Let's see here. Oh, this is what I wanted to pull up. Yesterday, after I did the whole vlog thing, I was working with 10-bit files. Someone says, oh, I saw you working with 10-bit files in Final Cut Pro 10. Does it work? I've heard that it doesn't. Yeah, it's always worked. 10-bit files on Final Cut Pro 10 has worked since the GH5 came out, since before that at some point. I think people have run into issues because their computer's not powerful enough. I think that's the problem that some people have with Final Cut and 10-bit files. Premiere has very recently updated to support the 10-bit file. So that much I know. They did not before, but they do now. So that someone at Panasonic just told me that the other day. So I'm not a Premiere user, so I hadn't experienced it, but apparently that's the case. So if you are shooting, if you're cutting with Premiere and you got a GH5, you want to shoot 10-bit, now you can. I am John Barker says, GH5 purchase coming soon. What are your SD card recommendations? UHS-1 speed will be a good start for me. Okay, good question. UHS-1 is certainly fast enough for everything that the card does today, the camera does today. If you want to shoot 400 megabit video when that firmware update comes, whenever it comes later this year, UHS-1 will not be fast enough. You will need UHS-2. With that in mind, even if you're not shooting 400 megabit video, the advantage of the UHS-2 cards is that they will clear your buffer faster if you're shooting a lot. Because if you're shooting sports and you're shooting raw and you're shooting the full 10, 9, 11, 12, whatever the heck it is, frames per second, even though the camera's got 100 image buffer, I think that's right, if you fill the buffer, until the buffer clears, you can't shoot anymore. And so the speed of your card, the right speed of your card, will determine how quickly that buffer will clear. So if you are a action shooter shooting raw, buy UHS-2 cards. If you are going to shoot 4K video with the 400 megabit, well, it doesn't matter what resolution it is, but if you're going to shoot 400 megabit, you need UHS-2. If you're neither of those, then you're probably just fine with UHS-1. I only have UHS-1s. That's all I've used on here. I've shot every format that the camera's capable of shooting today. Zero problems with it. I don't shoot fast action sports, shooting raw, so that's where I might run into an issue today. That's that. The other advantage of the faster cards is it's faster read times as well. So when you pop it into your computer, if you have a fast card reader, the files will get copied off of your card more quickly if you have a fast card than if you don't. So just something else to keep in mind. So if time is not an issue, you don't mind popping it in, going and having a latte, no problem, then don't save your money. If you're working on a deadline, you're a journalist, you want to import and get those pictures off as quick as you can, then having those faster cards will definitely be to your advantage. Sherborne is saying, should you wait for 400 megabit firmware before buying any cards? There's no point in waiting. We know 400 megabit, that's a bandwidth, right? Important thing to point out, just in case you're 400 megabit, right? That's a pipe. That's how much data. Whether you're shooting 24 frames per second or 60 frames a second, it's still 400 megabit per second. Very important thing to remember. Okay. Kevin Wright. He's not responding to me. He's not asking me a question. Okay, just chatting amongst themselves. Joe says, what if they only have a $200 budget? Are we talking, okay, Joe, are we talking about the photography? Because now we've gone on a different topic. So tell me if that's what you're talking about. Bart also says, Premiere still has some bugs. Oh, the 10-bit files, that's too bad. You have to edit while previewing the files at 100%. If you reduce to half or full resolution, then it shrinks the image in preview. Oh, lame. I'm sorry to hear that. Reduce to half or quarter causes problems, not full. Sorry, let's put that up there. Bummer. Okay, well, again, not a Premiere user, so I can't tell you firsthand, but that's unfortunate. They're supposed to be supported right now. Joe Preach says headshots. Right, if they only have a $200 budget, well, okay, that's great. If the client has X budget, whether it's $1 or $1,000, and they're asking you to do a job, are you willing to do the job for that money? If that's going to make you happy, then do it. If you're saying, it's just not enough for me, then don't. Simple as that, right? Part of the problem with doing work for less than you want to is your heart isn't into it, right? Remember, this is a creative endeavor. They're not asking you to, I don't know, with something mechanical, not insulting or degrading anybody, but they're not asking you to mow their lawn, right? Which is not exactly a creative endeavor. That's, you did it or you didn't do it. You did it right or you did it wrong. A headshot is creative, or any photography is creative. You have to put passion into it. You have to put thought into it. If you're making $100 and you wish you were making $1,000, you feel like that's what you're worth. Are you really going to care about the shoot? You're going to go into it half-assed, going, I don't really want to be here. They're going to be able to tell. We're going to know it from your pictures because you didn't care. This is one of the reasons that I insist on not, and personally, I don't do work for less, because I know that I'll get on set and I'll go, what was this dumb? Why am I here? I'm not making enough money to make this worth my while, blah. Now, if you're going to make less money than you want to, but you really want to do the shoot, that's totally different, right? There's got to be something in it for you that makes you want to do it. Like, oh, I'm only going to make $200, but man, this person's got the most epic face ever, and I can't wait to get this picture on my portfolio. Or they're going to let me be really creative. We're going to do some really cool stuff that I don't usually get to do. awesome. If there's a reason that you want to do it that is outside of the money and you're okay with a little bit of money, but you have this reason to do it, that's great. Example. I've shown here a picture before. I did this whole this thing with the ballerina and the flower or the baby powder. Super cool. I love the shot, right? That was not what I was hired to do. I was hired to do headshots and very specific, very clean dance poses from this ballerina. She was applying to dance school, a professional New York kind of dance school, and she needed really good, clean portraits that could show what she was capable of. So we had her aunt, who I think it was right, who was a professional ballerina in the studio, who was watching her move and being able to say, okay, you got to, and looking at the pictures. I'm shooting tethered. She's looking at the pictures, going, okay, no, you got to get your toe up a little bit more. You got to straighten that out. And it's very technical, not exciting work. And the lighting was not dramatic. It had to be very specific. We had to have a very specific type of lighting that really showed the muscles on her legs, that sort of thing. And the budget they had was good, but not great. And I said, tell you what, I'll do it for that if we can spend a day doing the shots you want, and then you come back for a second day of doing the shots that I want. And that's what we did. So I got 2 days of shooting, and they still got the pictures, but I got to do some really fun creative stuff that I wanted to do. Like, I got a professional ballerina in the house. I want to have some fun here and do some really cool pictures. So I got something out of it. They got something out of it. Everybody walked away happy. And I did make money. Not as much as I would have liked, but in the end, it was okay. So there's always that. Whew. Man, it's getting hot in here. Warren, good question. Is there a way, I should have broken this into, all right, we'll break this out into a new thing. It just won't have a proper intro. Anyway, Warren says, is there a way or etiquette for getting a model release? Yeah. Please sign a model release. That's it. I did a show, a podcast, let me pull it up here, on an app that I love called Easy Release. And let me zoom into my screen here. Where are we? I want to go to my photo up stuff. Oh, was that last season? Let's see. I don't remember now. Let's get this up here. Great app. Here it is. It is the second season. So if you go to photoapps.expert and you click on the podcast button, so there's the website, photoapps.expert, click on the podcast button right here, you'll see it was the second episode of this current season called Easy Release. Great app. I've been using Easy Release for years, absolutely years. I was stoked to get him on the show. It's a very straightforward app that does model release and property release. You have a generic one in there that's got very universal, very overarching language, meaning that you as the photographer are getting basically all the rights out of this, which is what you want to start with. And you just fill in a couple things, their name, their date of birth, or, well, actually you don't need that. Are they adult or child? If the child, date of birth, parent signature, that sort of thing. Take a picture of them, and you can sign it right on your iPhone. If you got an iPad with the Apple Pencil, they can do it like that. And then when you're done with it, you hit send, and it sends a copy of the model release to both you and to the model. Really, really handy. I love this app. So if you're doing model releases, absolutely check that out. As far as protocol, etiquette for it, if someone's shooting in your studio, make it clear up front, hey, I want to be able to use these pictures for marketing purposes. Will you sign a model release? And if they say no, then that's something you have to consider. Okay, well, I can't use these pictures in my portfolio or on my website or Yelp or anything like that because they won't sign a model release. Is it still worth it for me to do it? Something else to keep in your head. If you're out on the streets and doing street photography, technically you don't need a model release if it's street photography, unless you're going to use it for commercial work, in which case you do need a model release, in which case it's just a case of approaching and asking. When I did the shoot in New Orleans for Panasonic, everything was for commercial use, so nobody appeared in any photo, any video, anywhere unless we had a model release for them. In fact, one of my not favorite shots, but a shot that I really liked was a street shot. Someone was walking by. It was one of those, ooh, snap that, got him. I'm like, oh, that came out really good. And then realized half an hour later, oh, crap, no model release. I actually shared the picture. New Orleans is a small town. Shared the picture with a bunch of people. Tried to figure out who this guy was because he was really unique, really in the way he was dressed. And a couple people said, "Yeah, I've seen him around before, but maybe I think he eats at this cafe sometimes, but we never found him." So the shot had to get pulled out of the collection because no release. So things to consider. That was a long answer. Bart says, I shoot video and it took me a long time to get the guts to ask for what I felt I am worth. A rule I follow is if nobody is ever shocked at your price, you're not charging enough. I like that. So Zach Arias, one of my favorite photographers. If you don't know him, look up Zach Arias, Z-A-C-H, I think, not Z-A-C-K. I think that's right. But Arias, A-R-I-A-S. Google him. You'll find him. He has been very open about his whole progression into becoming a professional photographer. He failed at it at least once, had to go do something. Was working at Kinko's, came back, really, really open about it, really honest about what his experience was. And one of the stories that he loves to tell is he hired a studio manager at some point, and that manager was handling all of his bookings and invoicing and everything. And at some point, his studio manager said to him, or he found out, whatever, that the studio manager had raised his rates, doubled or something like that over the course of a year. I don't remember what the number was, but had raised them significantly. And Zach went, "What are you doing? Are you kidding me?" And they said, "You've been busy." He goes, "Oh yeah." So you raise the rates, like Bart says, until they go, "Oh," right? If someone says no, and if everybody says no, you're too expensive, then you're too expensive. But keep in mind, let's make the numbers easy. If you charge $500 or $1,000. To make that same $1,000, if you're charging $500, you got to do 2 shoots. If you're charging $1,000, you only got to do 1. Well, if every other person turns you down at $1,000, you're making the same amount of money and working less. This is a good thing, right? It gives you more time for your own personal projects, creative projects, whatever you want to do. Or sitting on the beach drinking beer if that's your thing, whatever. But if you can charge more and work less, well, this is good, right? Right. Okay. So much on this topic. It's a great topic. It really is. Curdy says, can you suggest some settings for video making? Oh man, that's way too big. Like, turn on the camera. Setting number 1. There's so many different things you can get into it. So it depends on what you're shooting. You're going to have to get a lot more specific. Feel free to come up with some specific scenarios and I will elaborate on those, but that is way too generic. Sorry. Joe says, wouldn't that be nice to release every time? You know, you can usually get a release. It's rare that someone will turn you down. And if you're doing something like street photography and you're shooting street performers, pay them. Absolutely pay them. And you can note that on your release as well. In fact, when we did the New Orleans thing, we had 2 different releases ready to go in the app. One that was a paid and one that wasn't. And we would never offer money. If it was a street performer, we would offer money in the beginning. Hey, and I would ask in advance, hey, I'm doing this thing. I would love to get some pictures of you. Can I shoot? And will you sign a release? And I'll give you $50. Yeah, great. Most of them are happy to do that. And it's a production, it's a commercial production. We've got money to spend. That's what it's for. So off you go. But don't, pay people. It's nice to pay people for that. Okay. Bart's saying, and this wasn't to me, but someone else commented on it. Oh yeah, I started very cheap and almost free until I really built up my skills and was ready to invest in more professional gear and go after larger projects. Oh yeah. Joe says, okay, you responded to somebody else, I guess, that you've been told no bookings, raise your price. There's a fair thing to that. You have to be able to back it up, right? But if you're charging, let's say $100 for a portrait and you're not getting any bookings and you raise your price to $500 for a portrait and you start getting bookings, people are assuming that you're good, right? Or whatever the number might be. It might be, depending on your market, it might be 500, might be 1,000, might be 5,000. They're assuming that you're good. If you're not, you're going to have a problem, right? You got to be able to back up the price that you're charging. You can't be giving snapshots and charging $1,000 a headshot. People are going to stop booking you pretty quickly. But yeah, if the work backs up the price, then by all means, go for it. Curdy says, wedding video making outside in nature. So outdoor wedding videos. Grab a neutral density filter, shoot a 180-degree shutter, and go shallow depth the field as much as you can. Bingo. Marvin PA had a similar problem with eBay in that you sign up with them and then they have total access to your account and the only way to stop them is to close your account and open a new one. Okay, I don't know what you're referring to, Marvin. I think there's a conversation that I missed earlier. Sorry. Sean, you're here. What did you miss? Can I start over? Yes. Hit the rewind. Bart says, with releases, I usually have my clients provide the release. Really? I usually shoot corporate video and the end product becomes the property of my client for distribution. Oh, okay. So video and photography are different as far as releases go. If you're doing video for a client, doing photography for a client, for them, they're the ones hiring you, you're taking pictures of video of them. Photography and video are very different animals in that way. It's just how the copyright laws are written. You as the photographer own the rights when you're shooting stills. In video, it is different, and that is negotiable from the beginning. Usually clients want to own the video at that point. But what you will do, what most video producers will do is they get a final video, but they don't get the source files. So if the client comes back and says, hey, I want a version dubbed in German, or I want you to recut this, I want this 5-minute version instead of a 20-minute version, they'll have to repay you to do that. They can't just run off with the source files and cut it on their own. That's pretty standard. But they have the rights to distribute however they want because that's just how video usually works. I'm John Barker says, do you usually drop a contract for your photography work? Not as often as I should. Honestly, I really got to get better at that. No, I really do. And there's plenty of contract. I do sometimes. I don't even have a boilerplate that I use. There's plenty of them out there. I should do it more often than I do. Burns Tech, can you do a show on solar photography? This is probably because of the eclipse you're asking. A lot of people keep asking about that. I know nothing about eclipse photography. I will do some research on that, but we have some time, right? It's like in 2 months or a month. It's in a month. Man, it's coming up. August 21st is coming up. So we'll do that at some point before then. Sorry. Bart says, I do have a clause in my contract that allows me to use content in part or in its entirety for promotional purposes on my website. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Good for you. Hey, Bart, if you've got a contract that you said you usually get them to supply it. And that's fair too. If you're working with a big commercial client, big corporate client, they probably have their own contracts that they want you to sign as opposed to the other way around. And that's fine as long as you are okay with the terms on it. So that's about that. Okay. All right. Well, we've managed to blow through another 20 minutes there. Let's call it. I'm going to get out of here. Hey, folks, have yourselves a lovely weekend. It is going to be hot. It's going to be hot out there. Well, of course, I have no idea where you are. It might be freezing cold where you are, but it's going to be hot here. And I've got a little baby on my own. My wife's out of town for a couple of weeks, so I am on daddy duty with a 2-year-old. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be fun. Help. Somebody. Take care, you guys. Have yourselves a good weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye.